Hey, 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 hey. How's it going? How's it going? Uh, Good to be here with y'all. I guess I don't need these headphones on. Um, if everything's hooked up, let me know. I have a chat view. If one of you could Oh shoot. My thing's talking to me. Nope, nope, nope. Close that. Okay. Take those off. We're gonna start right at 1. My computer is just churning right now, so pretty exciting stuff. I just finished a podcast episode, and it's going to be amazing, but it's processing in the background, so my computer might be pissed. Don't install. You can see my messy backdrop and everything. So yeah, so I'm just kind of getting everything set up for what we're gonna do. Toggle Zen mode. Hey John, how's it going? Coldar, hello. Hugh, what's up? Here's some good. Look at this. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. This right here, that's quarantine haircut right there. I can tell you that much. Yeah. So sound, video, everything look all right? We're doing pretty good right now. Let me know if anything is out of place. If I can fix zoom, like zooming at all, if this needs to be bigger or anything. Should be all right though. Let me go to the code, the head and screen one. COVID haircut, yes, COVID haircut. This was a while ago. I need to see if my barber's open. I feel like I missed that window where he was open, and he's probably closed again, and it sucks for both of us, really. It sucks for both of us. And it sucks for you to have to see what's going on right now. Let's see. Okay, cool. Awesome. Sounds good. Doing good. Got 2 minutes. So I'll just kind of tell you the format of this right now is that I really just wanted to show you like kind of like an avatar and like how I think about it. I think it's like the smallest piece of componentry that really illustrates a lot of cool things that you can do with custom properties and some of my favorite things to do with custom properties, but in a really nice small package. So totally open to questions. I may miss some by virtue of typing and doing all that kind of stuff, but just spam me with them if I miss them, and I will try to answer them as best I can. I'm no expert on this, but it is fun, and I thought we should all have some opportunities to play along with this really cool tech. You'll see very quickly that my Vim is atrocious, especially in this kind of odd code sandbox environment. Okay, let's get a couple other things set up. We'll be working in here for the most part. Let me get an image, actually. Get this boilerplate up so we don't have to do it. If I was super serious, I'd have like two computers up. One for streaming and one for this, but no, not that cool yet. I've been doing so many Zoom calls, I've kind of like forgotten like what that like weird silence is. Alex, what's up? Hey. I don't think I've seen you since I was in your hometown. Good to see you online. All right, here we go. It's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock here. Welcome to this little stream. It'll probably be pretty short. I don't want to take up too much of your day, but I did think it would be fun to just talk about custom properties and the handful of ways that I end up using them. Um, I think custom properties are super exciting. I know I've been, I guess, talking a lot of crap online about CSS and JS. And I don't know, I tend towards hyperbole on those types of things online, on Twitter at least, because that's what the platform's written for, right? Hyperbole. Um, but today I just kind of want to show you a couple of the things that I have found useful about CSS custom properties. This is by no means exhaustive. There's so many cool things, and maybe on Thursday we'll cover a couple more that I have found useful and interesting. But today I just wanted to cover some of the basics, like some things that I use every day when I'm using custom properties. Now, what you need to know in advance is that custom properties don't work in IE 11. So if you support IE 11, there's a bunch of strategies for that. I won't cover those today, but this will tell you the whole browser support for custom properties. So anyway, you can go there, check out the custom properties browser support, and let's see, what else? Am I in the right view? Yeah, okay. And then let's see, what's another resource that you'll want to know about? Oh yeah, so in the event that I do need to pre-process them, I really like postcss. It's basically a node tool that is progressive. So you use, it's a lot like Babel actually, where you use these different things, different tools to basically make your own Sass, if you're familiar with Sass as a pre-processing language. And you can use all of the kind of future like var and custom property syntax, and it'll get compiled down to still use the custom properties in modern browsers, but it'll have that fallback for IE 11. So good thing to know about, it is postcss.org. So those are the things that you'll want to know if you're going to put this into production. But let's actually just start diving into code and kind of start using some custom properties. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I actually hid my note sheet, so this could be very interesting. You'll kind of see the slow progress of thought that is my normal state. So we have on here, we have a source and we have an alt attribute to present this image. There's really nothing else going on. So as a first step, I'm just going to do some inline styling here. Inline styling is the best kind of styling in my opinion. And we're going to do a couple things. So let's just start with making the borders rounder. So border radius is what, 50%? There's about 30 different ways you can do that. What else do we need to do? This is the wrong card. It's the wrong card. Y'all expected like a professional stream, and then you just got me doing this stuff from memory. Okay, screw it. I'm gonna cheat. Unpackage.com. You get to see the real me today. So at work, I have a package, Planning Center elements, and inside that dist is going to be. I was actually just joking about this with Rachel Neighbors today, about how the older I get, the more copy paste code I end up having to do, and it's really it's become a little bit upsetting, but that's just the way it's going to be. Let's see. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like in CSS. Okay, so we're going to set the height. I don't know, let's keep it something that we can still see, like 3 rem. I'm going to send the width to 3 rem as well. Let's make that bigger. We got so much space. Okay. And then that always kind of like distorts the image. So we're going to use object fit, one of my favorite properties, which gives us control over kind of how this thing is sized inside of there. So we'll call this object fit cover, put the right commas in there, and then that will actually like put it in the right place. And then we could, if we wanted to, we could use object position to actually place that downward, but we're just going to go for like a general avatar right now. Now, one of the very first things that I notice in here is this duplication. Most avatars are going to be this like squared format, whether they're circle or square in shape. Their dimensions are usually 1-to-1 or 1-by-1. So a custom property would be really nice in here because instead of having to establish height and width in tandem, it'd be nice to change one value and have that just kind of scale this up and down. Now, I tend to like thinking about that as size. So you have height or width or size as the thing that's both of them together. So let's change this. We're going to start using custom properties right now. So you can wrap these things in you can pass a default to custom properties. So usually I just start by taking whatever was there and wrapping it in var, and then making that the second argument. Now here, I'm going to do something avatar size. Okay. So you define a custom property just by using this double dash syntax. And you can use, let's see, you can put, mostly anything behind here. It's going to, you won't be able to use special characters. I'm pretty sure you can use underscores. Capitalization works, but I think some browsers normalize it down to lowercase. So you might have cases where like you thought you were going to see something different based on the capitalization, but they're actually the same. Things to keep in mind. Now, what I tend to do, and this is just kind of like a hangover from BEM, is I'll use the double dash to say I want to start a custom property, and then I will separate kind of the module name that I'm working with from the like property that I want to use. Hey Byron, good to see you again. Thanks for dropping by. And yes, I'm doing well, and I hope you are doing well as well. So we have this size. Now it's falling back to that 6 rem, and we can test that out by seeing if I change this fallback value, it is indeed falling back to that value. So let's change both of these to var avatar size 6 rem. Okay. Now, what do we want to do here? Okay, so from here, we have a little bit of a fallback. We got all this stuff going. And at this point, it's kind of irritating to actually continue to do this in React, but we'll do it. I'm going to add a style sheet now so that we can kind of set a default size for our avatar. Now, all of this is in React componentry right now, but we can, use this same, use these vars just like we would if we were doing it in CSS. They're all very like platform standard. So let's do that. We're going to make a new style sheet. Actually, let's myapp.css, because look, one of the cool things about custom properties is that you can have something that is very responsive and dynamic to multiple apps or platforms. You can really use this to build frameworks. So I'm going to call this myapp.css because maybe your app has a different default and different standards. So we go there, myapp.css, and we're going to define our custom property for this at the root of our application. This is a CSS selector that's going to go to the rootmost node. Now, in a standard web application, that's going to be the HTML element. So at the very root of our application, we're defining these values to cascade through our entire app. And here, I'll just do the double dash, avatar size, and we'll do 8 rem. Now I did something I haven't included it yet. So I'll have to include this. Import my app CSS from my app.css. Import, no, stupid. Okay, cool. So you saw it jump up a little bit, which is pretty neat. So now we can change this kind of on a global scale right here. So this is going to be the default. Now that's not, I know if you've been wounded by global CSS before, you're probably like your heart is breaking right now. I just want to illustrate like this is how you create a default. And that setting this can actually go through and actually change all these values. Now let's actually pull this out into a component and make this even more dynamic. Because again, right now we don't have any abstraction here. We just have an image that's using a custom property. So let's take that out. Function avatar. There's so much input lag. Return. I don't know about you, but I always hate the auto closing stuff, and I never take the time to actually turn it off. Okay, so we have an avatar here now. I didn't do that totally right. Okay, so now if I just do avatar, it's like this super opinionated avatar that only ever presents this one image. That's a pretty crappy app, if you ask me. So let's make it more dynamic. We're going to take these guys off and put them right there. We need to change our components. In hindsight, I should have just started this in CSS. Live and learn. Okay, cool. So we got what we got now. We have an avatar. We can pass in the alt and the source separately, and then it is kind of styling itself with these things. Now, the cool thing about this is that I've only named this one property. So we're kind of like creating an API for this thing. So now when I change these, they change in tandem and they update the thing accordingly. So I want to show you, let's see, let's move this out to classes so I can show you. Yeah, so we can show you something else. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to take all that and we're going to just apply a class name now. Class name, we'll just call this avatar. Copied the wrong thing, but I think it's still going to work. I'm going to leave that border box in and it'll come in handy in a second. Okay, so save this side. Okay, we're still good. Now, one of the cool things here is that now I can kind of scope this in really interesting ways. So here I can, now that I'm getting the class style, I can actually override just the custom property. So we'll do this. Avatar size is 10 rem. And this is super cool and composable because now that I have this like base avatar, I can still change just like single nodes. So like, let's do this. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna do this inline to illustrate the coolness of this. Also, I'm not sure why it's not why it's reformatting to such a wide berth. Again, custom property dash dash avatar size is 10 rem. There we go. Cool. Let's change another one. Just get this out of there. I'm going to change this to, actually, let me flip these dimensions so we see different pictures there too. We're going to change this to 2. Okay, cool. So you can see we're now using the custom properties on the element themselves to use this to actually define like what this size should be. Now, you might think like, well, I could have done this with inline styles. Yes, you could have, but even with an avatar, there is some level of opinion about how this thing is rendered. And so if you were to do this with just inline styles, you'd have to override both the height and the width in tandem. And so this is something that's really nice about custom properties. You're able to now define kind of like a CSS API, right? Because this would have been height 2 rem 3, oops, 2 rem. Now you can still override it that way. That's fine, but this gives us a, oops, I need width. Okay, so this gives us a nice way to just kind of change those values in tandem. And another thing is that I find just working in applications, I find this unhelpful long term. So one of my biggest gripes with inline styles is that like it's really hard to kind of like know what this is, like what's the intentionality around this thing. And we're actually giving that language here. So if we build a lot of one-off avatars throughout our system, and we're like, you know what, we really need to start like formalizing this into some type of like framework or design specification. Well, now I can look for like all of the different avatar sizes. I have a little bit of like a handle to like grep for and be like, oh, okay, like, well, we actually like coalesce naturally around these 6 sizes. So that's a good place to start for our framework. Versus this, I have a little less to work from. Yeah. Yes. A lot of shenanigans to get this stuff working in CSS before. So yeah, so this is really the crux of this. Now I want to show you something additionally cool, and this is like one of my favorite things about they're all my favorite things. One of my all favorite things about this. So let's say we wanted these to be the same. So we're working on a layout where all of the avatars, let's say all of them are going to be pretty small. We're going to change this to maybe 32 pixels. And we can actually keep that one in 2 rem. Okay. So you know, a lot of times you might like, you know, I guess practically you'd probably like iterate over a list, right? But just bear with me, because like this practice, you'll find a lot of uses for it beyond just kind of like list iteration. So what I can do here is I can actually cascade those in, which is really neat. So let's say I have some, you know, additional layout. We'll call this class some layout in my app. And this gets used so many times that we know that eventually it's going to be a component. Well, the question is like, how do we then kind of define the relationship between this layout and what avatars are supposed to look like in it? Now, the cool thing about this is that I can actually just have like, you know, if I was using grid, I could have a section for this and define just in this section that I want all of the avatars in this grouping right here to be avatar size 32 pixels. Okay, now I can take this off and everything in this div is going to be that size, which is pretty neat. I love being able to kind of like cascade down a certain style. This works like magic with button groups. I do this all the time with button groups. So we have a button that, gets its sizing from a custom property. And then in that layout where you got like, was it maybe like cancel and save right next to each other? I'll just, set it right on the parent node of that, what size I want both of those buttons to be, which is pretty neat. Yeah, it is. It's a superpower. It gets even better. I have more things to show you. Yes, the grepping is a huge thing, and I find that something I really like. Byron, you mentioned like how important it is to grep for things, and I really like kind of like the tokenization of this. I guess like this feels like a first class value. And while we're on the topic, there's a thing called CSS Type. So if you do a lot of TypeScript, you're going to immediately run into this issue where you're not allowed to put these custom properties on there. But you can actually define a type. So I can put I can create an avatar type for custom properties, and now get auto completion and actually restrict the types of changes that can be made, which is just really neat to be able to get that type of editor integration. So super cool. For the interested, you can go check out CSS Type for your style libraries. Okay, so what is one of the next things I want to do? Borders. This is pretty much the neatest thing. Oh, at any point you can interrupt me if you have questions about what we've covered so far. My goal is just to kind of show some of the ways that I use these things. Oh, light theme. Yeah. Let me see. I don't know if that happens at a. Yeah, we can fix the theming thing. Where does that happen? Workspace setting. I guess I need to change just the theme. If anyone wants to chime in and help me figure out how to do this in VS or Code Sandbox, that'd be great. User setting, text editor. I guess I'd have to put it in there. Color theme, Code Sandbox, black. Okay, let me know what I need to put in there, and we'll get it changed out. Yeah, Paul, CSS Type is sick. It's super rad. It like gets you so. I think a lot of people talk about like kind of like the editor completion, all that kind of stuff, when using CSS and JS, and then kind of like restricting certain values. And this really does get you a lot of the way there if you're using custom properties. I mean, you get a lot of that stuff, and I hate theme provider. I don't. I've been developing React for like 7 years now, and it's just weird. The ergonomics are bad, in my opinion. I don't like it. Don't like it. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I've never changed the theme in here. So I'm gonna give it maybe 30 more seconds, and if we can find a solution, that's great. No, that's an actual Code Sandbox with an example. Let's see. I wonder if yeah. Sorry, but I will keep that in mind for the next one. See if we can get that fixed for you. Let's see. Okay, so this is where it gets super cool. I mean, it was already super cool, but now it's going to get even super cool. Okay, so we have now file preference color theme. Oh, I got to get out of Zen mode. That's what's screwing me up. File preferences. There we go. Nope. quiet light. Let's try Atom 1 light. Cool, there we go. Woo! That's a shift. That's a shift. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna move this over just a little bit since it doesn't really want to format the code the way that I want it to. So what was the next thing that I wanted to do? Oh yes, I wanted to get into borders. Okay, so this is pretty nifty. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna put another inline style here, just because I always love to start me with an inline style. And we're gonna put border just to make sure it works. We'll do border 1 pixel. Let's do a bigger one for the stream. 4 pixels, solid. Fuchsia. Boop. Perfect. Probably doesn't need to be that big. Actually, I'm going to make these a little bit bigger. I can change both of them at once, which is awesome. We're going to change this to 4 rem. Okay, cool. Now, you saw just when I changed that now, from a design perspective, there's an inherent relationship between how thick the border should be and the avatar size itself. Now, it'd be nice if I didn't have to additionally make if I could define that relationally as opposed to having to make a bunch of different sizes, right? Like avatar size small, avatar size large, like all that kind of stuff. That would suck. I don't want to introduce like a sizing API. I'd like to have a default that defines this relationally. So we can actually do that with a little bit of change to our custom properties. So I'm going to show you what I want it to look like, and then we're going to actually make it work. So for this part of it, what I want is to say, I want this to be a variable. I want the size to be a variable. And I want it to defer a value from avatar size. Okay. Now we can set that by, we can set the default to like, I don't know, let's say like 2 pixels in case it's not defined. Okay. Now, there's another cool thing in CSS that's been around for forever. It allows us to actually like change certain things, or do calculations. So I'm going to take calc, and I'm going to wrap my avatar size in that, and we'll multiply that times, I don't know, 10% or whatever. See, calt. Nope. Now, I think I did something wrong because it hates me. Okay, cool. Now, I think this is one thing that kind of sucks about inline styles. I don't get the syntax highlighting, so I can't be 100% sure that I did it all right. Now, what we need to do next is we need to make sure that the avatar size is actually defined in the scope of this class. It's just kind of like a quirk of this. We need to have it defined kind of as available like on the node. So I think let me double check. Avatar size. We're going to set the default here to 6 rem. Copy and pasted the different code, so it may be a problem. I see some comments going on, so maybe someone's going to be able to help me out. Calc goes outside the var. That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But I need to. Yeah, I really did screw this up, didn't I? Times 0.1 just gives us a 10%. Awesome. Thanks for helping me out there. I appreciate it. Yeah. So what happened was I was varring and calcing in the wrong ways. I need to resolve this variable inside of my calculation. So yeah, so this is pretty neat. Now, as I change these, let's go kind of like down and up the scale. Oh, I broke this. What did I do? Oh, I set the default there. Bummer. Bummer. Can't have all the best things, I guess. So yes, so that's pretty cool. So I guess I have to go back to, let's see. I know I've solved this in the past, and my brain is just not I know autocomplete on the iPad is the freaking worst. So yeah, so this is we'll kind of get back to the let's see. So this is at this point null because I say I have this fallback here. And I don't know if I can resolve that on stream without it just being like totally annoying to everyone. So I thought what I would do kind of after this is kind of show you how I would actually start defining this as like an actual like framework. So if we were to have multiple sizes for avatars, how I would start doing that. So let's get into that. So let's build out a little example here first. And I'm going to change a couple things actually. Let's make this a little smaller. Cool. Let's change the default size to, okay. Okay, great. So that worked, I think. There we go. I'm gonna try this one more time, see if this works. Again, not an expert, just wanted to share what I know, or kind of know. Let's see, change those to 40 pixels. Does that work? Okay, cool. Now we have everything again. Woo! Cool, and you can see that the size of this kind of scales proportionally with the size of the avatar, which is really neat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build up just a couple of these. I guess I don't need that on this node anymore. We're going to do like 5, right? So maybe your framework has 5 styles of these things. And I'm going to move this into my CSS because that's now kind of like part of the design. Border. Killer. Okay, so it all works now. Now, what I want is I want to have an API for like kind of how to make this framework. Now, I have a very, this is going to dip into, we have enough time for it. I have a very, I guess, opinionated way of writing CSS. This might not jive with you, but I'm just going to show you kind of how I do it. So one of my favorite things to do is a data attribute selector. And this is really great for CSS APIs that need to exist in a mixed stack. And one of the biggest reasons is because it can be data selectors are kind of like untreated in JSX. So you can actually use this dash and they like kind of let all that fall through. So if you have a documentation for your like design system, you can copy and paste these to either React or Rails or Svelte or like whatever. They just, everyone, like all of the frameworks just kind of back off of this data selector. They'll let you kind of like, do it the way that you need to. So I'm going to do data avatar. I'm going to change this in my implementation. And again, this is my, I'm doing this so it's shared across all of these via the component, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And I'm going to change this selector. So on this side, it looks like this, data avatar. Okay. So now I'm going to start building a framework around this. So we have that. We're going to say, I'm going to say data avatar. What do I want to be? I'm going to say size extra small. That's weird. Okay. We'll kind of go a little bit further and say I want this one to be small. Y'all know the drill on these design systems. Let's see. Data avatar size. And I will get to, I see a couple comments. I'll get back to those in a second. I just want to kind of get through this. Okay, so xlars. Obviously none of that's doing anything right now, so we're going to actually kind of start building up our framework here. So we'll do the, I guess it's like kind of like a wildcard selector. As long as this text shows up, you're good. So let's do the first one. That's going to be extra small. I don't need to redefine all of this. I just need to set my custom property. So let's do avatar size. And let's see, what was our default? This isn't going to be a good system. It'll just be in a, something to demonstrate what we're after. So let's make x small 2 rem. Copy that. Make small 3 rem. I didn't define a medium because that's just the default. 5. This is a terrible system. Don't like actually use this in production. It would look bad in every app probably. So you can kind of see though that all of this kind of like works the way that it works. Now I know that for my applications, there's usually also some type of like there are some outliers, right? So when someone views their profile, we have this humongous avatar for themselves in their page, and so that kind of lives outside of the system. No problem. I can just kind of say like size profile, and then change this to, I don't know, it's mega. It's like 14 rem or something, just hilarious like that. Let's put this at the bottom. I'm going to say size profile. Cool. So we have this really like massive one at the bottom now. Now, one of the issues there is a lot of people are like, well, that's like the border on that is just like uncomfortably big. Like nobody wants a border that big. So I can change other properties to kind of, just the same way that I do this one. Now I don't have to define them on all of them, just the outliers. So we'll say, oops. Avatar border width. Let's max this out at like, what is it? 8 pixels. Then I just need to change this to use a custom property. Oh, this could be tricky because I didn't define all of these. I don't know. This may be hell for all of us, but we'll see. One thing that is tricky is there's no like if else, which is like a little bit of a bummer. Okay, so border width var, and then for the default, I want this. Oops, sorry, this calculation. So we'll put the default in there. That's what I want it to fall back to. But if there's a border width defined, avatar border width, then I'm going to use that. Now that's going to force me to define these other properties. So let's see, border color is, can never spell this word right, and border width is solid. I'm using the wrong syntax. Thank you. Error highlighting. I think we can comment that out. Oh! Nope, that's right. Okay, I see some. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. I want to answer some questions. Do you find that a lot of design relationships like the avatar and border size fit neatly into a simple mathematical relationship? Not necessarily, but I do find that it's a pretty decent default, right? Like so like in this profile thing, like there are going to be outliers, and so like we have these tiny little avatars that are done for inline messaging, and so we have a selector for like inline messaging that just has no border on it. But I do find that having the availability for defaults allows us to override them when we need to, but then have those really like nice defaults otherwise. I do think that there could be, border definitely seems to be one of those places. I think that you could probably do that with like border radius too. Different sizes of things. I like to put like kind of different border radiuses on as they get smaller or bigger. I like to have those relational as well. But no matter how tightly you get the mathematics, it's never going to cover all of your cases. There's always going to be outliers that just look odd. But fortunately, it can be really easy to override them in those specific named cases. Yes, yeah. So I think, okay. Let's get back into here. I think we're good. So let's see, Nathan, you're saying border style. Oh, there we go. Yes, thank you. Can't define the same thing with two different values and expect it to work. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. So what we have now is we can change this one independently. So however we decide this looks best for profile, we can turn it completely off. We can, if we wanted to be tricky, we could do it like transparent and oh, that didn't work. Transparent, and then set the, oh, that's a border width. That's why. We could do this like 16 pixels if we wanted to like scale it down a little bit, and then change the avatar border color to transparent. Is that what I want to do? And then we would just have to change this to var avatar border color, and then set the default to fuchsia. Yeah. So now this is just kind of like inset a little bit from the edge. I mean, just kind of demonstrating how you can do that, but then also like how these, you kind of like define these custom properties as you need them, like as something is unavailable, you could do that. I guess we could even change this if we want to just be like have a really weird one. We could change the border style to dotted, And once again, change this. Oops, usually I wrap those. So whatever the default is, I'm going to wrap that. Avatar, border, style. I guess that didn't work. Solid. Maybe I did it wrong. Cool. Border style. I feel like, why use data attributes instead of class names? That is a good question. This is not necessary, by the way. This is just the way that I think about things. But I will do your best to answer that question. So first and foremost, it's because JSX and like pretty much every templating language will leave this alone, which I work predominantly on mixed stack applications, so there might be a lot of like Rails code and React code and whatever, and I need both of those to share the same styling library. And you can't copy and paste something that just has a class in it, because in React it needs to be class name, but then in Rails it's going to be class. Any HTML is going to be class. One thing I really like about these is that I can write the docs. These get copy and pasted and work pretty much everywhere. I also really prefer these as selectors versus like if we were to do kind of a traditional BEM style, so class, what would that look like? We would call this avatar, and then we would have avatar size large or something like that. I find this to be much nicer. And yeah, I think these data attributes are a little bit easier to search across a project because, I've had so many times where these get kind of abstracted away in some kind of, odd way. So you might have something like this, and you can still do this with data attributes, but whatever. So like some condition, and then that is a string. There's just a couple reasons that I favor them. They feel a little bit more like modules to me, and the way that I do this with the colon, they honestly feel a lot like functions. So it just kind of bridges the gap a little bit for me as someone who does a lot of CSS and JavaScript. Bridges the gap a little bit better for me. Let's see. Still transparent. Oh, yes, thank you. So this is going to have to be tomato. Tomato. There we go. Interesting. That is ugly. That's really freaking ugly. Cool. Okay, so that's kind of all of the things that I really wanted to show today. It's been like 50 minutes. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them and kind of go through any of it. So yeah, let me know. I'll stick around for a little bit and just kind of answer questions or kind of tinker with this code in any way that you want to see. Let's open this up. I'll paste this in chat in case you wanted to fork it and play with it on your own. I think that we covered quite a bit. So while I'm waiting for any comments, I will just kind of like recap some of the pieces that we covered. Okay, so big things is that we define our we define our custom properties. A custom property is something that is has this dash in front of it. So it can be literally anything. Dash Bob box Bob. Yo, what up? I think they can even have like underscores, but they don't really like allow a lot of special characters, so don't get too fancy. I find that often I'm just using it like my module, and then I'll use like another dash dash for the key that I'm doing, and then on the other side it's going to be the so I think in JavaScript terms that's kind of how I think about it. So that's how I tend to write a lot of mine. You'll find your own style, and that's great. Now they can be defined on the root. You can define these on certain nodes, which is really nice. If you're kind of creating a certain layout, if you had like a card with different types of attributes on there, you could define these. You could define a custom property for this avatar right on that card abstraction, and it would affect all the avatars inside of it, which is really cool. Then when you want to use these values, you're going to use var and just wrap that custom property inside of it. They can take a default, which is really nice when you know that in most cases you're not going to be changing the border style. If you wanted to do this in an IE11 supported way, you can just add both. So modern browsers will know to override this with your custom property, but then Internet Explorer won't know what to do with var, and it will just use this fallback instead. Again, postcss.org provides a processor that will do this for you automatically, which is really nice. So it'll just take whatever you have here as your default and kind of place it as an IE11 default for you, which is really cool. And then, we can use calc to actually infer values. So we can, use this here, which is super neat. That all cascades as expected. And these give us really nice handles for making customizations without having to know the internals, because we're just changing size now, knowing that that's going to get put on width and height. Interesting. All right. So we have a couple Alex, thank you. I appreciate that you enjoyed it. Excellent stuff. Nice. Let's see. I think I can show you all the chat. Yeah. Does that work? This is like Danger Town right now. Nathan, do you usually just I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can make that larger. Let me see real quick. Does that work? No. Okay, I'm gonna put it on my screen where I know I can make it larger. Let me see my messy desktop for a second. Oh no, you won't. Okay, cool. You should be able to see my head and the chat right now. So do you usually just stick to one data attribute per component? Example, for an avatar, just use data avatar and then include modifiers in the string. Yes. I usually kind of think of those as like functions or modules or whatnot. So I would have like a button one. I'd have like, I don't know, text input, things of that nature, and then I would put all the modules as strings, which I find to be a very nice and ergonomic way to do it. There could be a case made for not using the strings at all and just using the stringing more dashes onto the data attribute. I think that's totally fine too. In some cases, it might even be better because it's significantly harder to interpolate properties in JSX. So that would really, really dissuade someone from ever like kind of interpolating those. But yeah, I think it probably depends on what you're after. Let's see. Paul, I'd like to see more of this data adder rule definition pattern. Yeah, it's funny. I think I started doing this at the beginning of the year, maybe sometime in January. I think after the holiday, it all kind of like started to click for me that this was a really nice way to write style sheets. And I think that I'm going to start writing a little bit more about it. I've had, you know, I guess about 6 months now of it actually going into production code and seeing how other people use it. And I think it's pretty solid. I feel pretty good about it. Another thing that I really like is in just kind of, this isn't CSS Custom Properties related, but since you asked, something I really like about it is stuff like this. So sometimes I'll do this like data avatar and I'll like scope it to like a feature, right? And this is, I don't know, some new feature or whatever. And we know this isn't necessarily like part of our like system yet, but maybe it'll need to be incorporated or whatnot. But this really allows me to, I guess, document like in code, like why this thing exists, and why it's a special case, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done there. Let's see. Let's go back. I know that iPad, man. It's like I can't type anything on the iPad. I applaud you for doing this on the iPad. Let's see. I think that's it. If you have any questions, down the road, I'm always happy to chat about this stuff on Twitter. I think it's super, super fun. And I know for me, I guess I wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's something that gets overshadowed by the CSS and JS conversation right now. Is just how many cool things we can do with CSS. So I think maybe so Thursday, I'm doing another one of these at 1:00 again. And I think I might show you a little bit of how to do color systems with CSS Custom Properties, which is super fun. There's some super wild and crazy stuff you can do with like HSL color values and custom properties. So yeah, if you want to learn more, you can check in then. I'll try to be a little bit more prepared then because I definitely won't be able to remember that in the heat of the stream. So I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. Glad we could spend some time together today. And yeah, love to chat with any and all of you at any point. So I hope you have a good week and an even better weekend. I'll see you later.